Everything's great. Happy New Year. Thank you.
All right. I appreciate it. All right, let's get right into it. Obviously, the big story in our backyard, Chip Kelly out as Eagles head coach. Let me ask you this first and foremost. Were you shocked that Kelly was fired, or were you more shocked that Kelly was fired with a game to go in the season?
A little shocked that it was with a game to go. I thought they would have seen everything out of the season, but probably a little more surprised. I thought Jeff Lurie would have stayed with this for another year, but it's obvious that there's some power plays going on in the office. You've read plenty about that, heard plenty about that, and I think that there's a general dissatisfaction with the direction of the team. Obviously the personnel decisions were all poor. I don't think there's a good one there, and I think that there's a general problem with the way that Chip's system works in the NFL. I don't think it's physical enough over the course of a 16-game season to hold up. I think it works at the college level. I don't think it works in the NFL.
You had a good take on a couple of things regarding Kelly, and not really the X's and O's, but maybe the personality and his unwillingness to adapt. What are you, from those that you spoke to around the NFL, because I know a lot of people are speculating it's going to be easy for him to get a job, land right back on his feet quickly. I know you don't think that's necessarily the case, but what is it that can ultimately hurt Chip Kelly going forward as a head coach in the NFL?
Well, look, even at the NFL level, you have to get people to play hard for you. You have to get them to rally around you and to follow you. And I don't think that he connects enough with the players. Now, I think that statement that he put out, I guess it's last week now, or over the weekend after he got fired, was, where he talked about, I love my players, this and that. If you have to say that, then you know that there's a problem. You're acknowledging that there's an issue here between you and how you communicate with your players and whether you can get them to actually show up and perform for you. And I think we've seen a lot of people take shots at Chip Kelly. I think some of that is legit, some of it's personal, but I think the general tenor of all of it is there is a disconnect here between Kelly and his players. You're not just sitting here using them as replaceable parts. These are grown men who want to hear why are they supposed to do something. They want explanations of what they think is going to work, and they want to buy in. It's not like dealing with college players.
When Lurie makes a decision, look, I mean, we can all speculate. Two scenarios to me can be, hey, they had a meeting and he turned around and he said, listen, I'm stripping you of your GM duties, and Chip Kelly basically was, I'm taking my ball and going home. Or Jeffrey Lurie just said, you know what, this isn't working out. He didn't put up a fight, and he got the out that he needed. With that being said, because Jeffrey Lurie now slides back in his buddy Howie Roseman, who to me is more of a fantasy football guy. He's a contract and numbers guy. He's had a strong personality as well. He couldn't get along with Kelly. There was a friction there with Andy Reid. When you look at the Philadelphia Eagles right now and the franchise and that open vacancy, is that a desirable landing spot for a head coach or someone that wants to be a head coach in the NFL? Or do they have to worry maybe some red flags like, wow, you know what? He didn't get along with this guy didn't get along here. The owner fires a guy 3 years into a 5-year plan. I don't know if this is where I want to be.
I think the biggest question is for head coaches, anybody who's willing to take that job, is, are you going to be able to work with Howie, and how is it going to operate with Howie? And I think there's a way to do that, but you're definitely dealing with Howie being one of the people who's the main movers and shakers in the organization.
Yeah,
and I think there's some good to that, especially if you're talking about Howie's ability to handle contracts and build a team through with salary cap considerations. I think that can be wise. But if you're talking about the scouting and actual selection of the players and determining who's a better football player than another, then I think there's a limitation for guys like Howie Roseman that is inherent with the fact that, look, they didn't grow up scouting or coaching or making decisions on the field about guys. And so their input has to be measured. It's just like what Cleveland's trying to do right now with Sashi Brown and Paul D. Podesta. So, it's not necessarily, there's nothing necessarily wrong with doing, analysis and analytics, but there's a limitation to how valuable it is in football. And so you have to put it in its proper perspective.
Yeah.
And I think that Howie has to be kept in a proper place, but an important place within the organization.
Two more quickies on the Eagles, then we'll move on. When you look at some of the candidates that they're bringing in and they have interest in, whether it's the Ben McAdoo's, the Adam Gase, they already did Deuce Staley, and everyone knows, come on, it was because of the Rooney Rule. And it's a good interview for Deuce to take.
Deuce actually asked for that interview.
Well, it's a good interview for him to take because it gives him an idea.
No, he didn't take. Deuce asked for that interview. This is the thing that people, I think, the one little detail about Deuce's interview, which I want to be clear
about. No, please, be clear.
Deuce went to them and requested that interview.
Well, that's okay.
From what I'm told by a source who's actually on Deuce's side of it. Now,
okay.
That he believes in himself that he can solve this. Now, it is viewed as a way of getting around the Rooney Rule. And I think Philadelphia needs to be cognizant of that. I think the Eagles were not as cognizant of that as they should have been, that it was perceived as a way around it. But this is Deuce's request, and I think they were honoring Deuce's request. It's just you have to be able to explain to Deuce it's really difficult to make the jump from running backs coach to head coach with no interim unless you have some other experience along the way.
Agree, and thank you. That's excellent clarification. And you're right. I mean, Deuce Staley's he's a fan favorite and Lurie favorite. All right. So with that being said, in your eyes, if you kind of handicap the candidates out there, who do you see at the end of the day is going to be named Eagles head coach, or do you think they just might slide in Shermer? And if they slide in Shermer, is it to kind of appease Bradford?
I think that would be to appease Bradford to a certain extent, which is not necessarily. I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing. I'm still not convinced that Sam is a good enough quarterback. I love Sam personally. I think he's terrific, but I think you have to make a bigger decision, not just based on one player. He's not Eli Manning, where your decision should be based on what is Eli comfortable with. If the Giants were to say promote McAdoo, sorry for the noise here, but this is downtown New York. But I think it's probably going to be a guy who goes from the coordinator side, somebody who I would say Howie believes that he can work with more easily, and rather than bringing in, say, a veteran head coach who's going to want a whole lot more control. Now, that could change if they get a real chance at Sean Payton, but I think there's going to be a lot of competition for Sean Payton.
Yeah. Let's move on to the Giants with Coughlin resigning. It's all semantics, whether he was forced out or not. Here's my problem with this. You have to listen to Jerry Reese talk about talent. And, yeah, he's had some hits, but he's had a lot of misses. Why does Coughlin go and Reese stays?
Well, I think there's a greater belief that Reese will fix the problem and is young enough to get it right and to assess what his problems are. I think at this point Coughlin's had his 15 years. There's a staleness, perhaps, to his message. And, he's 69 years old. I mean, I hope I'm not spry, and I hope I'm in that good a shape when I'm 69 years old. I can tell you that right now. But, it's like Larry Bird said a long time ago. After about 10 years, the message gets to be the same, and it doesn't go through. Players start to tune people out. It's unfortunate, but it happens.
What route do you think the Giants are going to go? Are they going to look more for defensive? I mean, I know they'll.
I think it's going to be McAdoo. I really do think it's going to be McAdoo.
All right.
I think McAdoo makes sense because, again, you've spent 2 years with
Eli
with McAdoo. Do you want to change the system now? I mean, it's not their normal way of doing things. They usually like to have a coach who has head coaching experience and knows the organization really well.
Sure.
McAdoo at least knows the organization for 2 years. He doesn't have the head coaching experience, so you wonder if he's going to be overwhelmed by New York. But I think all the other things make sense.
All right, a couple more for you. And again, Jason Cole does a great job covering the NFL for Bleacher Report. Rich Quinones here. We'll take you up to 2 o'clock. It was a little interesting that everyone, I'm not saying you, but everyone out there, or many of the talking heads per se, thought that Chuck Pagano was as good as gone in Indianapolis. And
I thought he was gone. You can put me in that.
All right.
You can put me out there.
Well, see that? I finally get one on you. What was... How much did the players and luck have to do with this, or was this a situation where Irsay realized they're better off with Pagano because even if these reports are true that they were trying to go after Peyton or trying to go after someone else, they just weren't going to get that guy. So by default, Pagano stays with the Colts and gets that contract extension.
I think that here's where I kicked myself a little bit. In December, in early December, there was a meeting of NFL owners in Dallas, and I saw Ursay there, and I said, okay, what are you going to do? What's your plan? And he kind of sheepishly, uncomfortably said, well, I really think there's a way for Chuck and Ryan to work it out so we can get Pagano and Grigson together. And I kind of just said, oh, you're just giving me talk. And I should have just realized, and I know Jim Irsay well enough, I should have realized, no, he's actually earnestly saying what he believes because he's not a kind of guy who BS's. And so I kicked myself in saying, no, you really wanted to do this, and convinced myself, and I went with the pack that Pagano was gone because, he's not a master strategist.
Right.
So I think that it was really knowing what I know and saying it right now and admitting my own mistake, it was in, Jim Irsay's heart that he wanted to see if this would work out. Now, is he also looking there and saying, can I get a better coach? Can I get a Sean Payton? Could I get a Nick Saban? Could I get somebody else like that? I'm sure he thought about it. He may have even made the phone calls. I was told he did not talk with Sean Payton's representatives. So, so we'll see. But if I had the Indianapolis Colts and Andrew Luck for the next 10 years.
Yeah, you stay there.
Yeah,
yep.
I would definitely ask about Sean Payton. And if I thought the price was too expensive, I'd say, okay, let's try and make it work with Pagano and Grigson.
Yeah, I made that point yesterday with the two teams, the two desirable, obviously New York with the market and having a franchise quarterback in Eli, and then, of course, a baby franchise quarterback in Andrew Luck. I don't think you can go wrong either way. Let me give you three names, Gase, McDaniels, and Hugh Jackson. Will any of them be a head coach next year?
Gase will be.
With who?
Hugh Jackson probably will be. McDaniels probably will not be.
Where do you see the two, the first two respectively?
Gase in Miami, Hugh Jackson.
I mean, I look what he did in Oakland. Go ahead.
Hugh Jackson probably San Francisco.
San Francisco.
Maybe someplace like Philadelphia. I could see that happen.
A dark horse in Philly. So
a dark horse. Yeah, dark horse.
All right.
No pun intended.
No, of course not, Jason. We already know your sarcasm. Hashtag sarcasm. Listen, before I let you, last one for you, and appreciate the time as always. So you're looking at Hugh Jackson as again, possible dark horse for the Eagles job. But who would be the right fit for the Eagles job? And again, I want to go back to something you said with Sam Bradford. If they tag him, they're basically going to be right back in this situation next year. I don't think he's a 5-year, $100 million quarterback. I think maybe a 3-year deal and some incentives because he's got to show he can be healthy and he's got to be in the right system. Everything has to work perfectly.
That sounds great, but why would he take that deal if he could do better?
But where? Why would he want to go to a team like Cleveland for the money and have to go into another offense?
That's a great question, and that's a great point back. But at the end of the day, people usually take the money. I'm just saying. Now, if I was Sam, I would say, or I would say, look, I got to have more than 3 years of security in my life. I do not want to be bouncing around the world, the rest of my life. I want to make sure that I've got, I got to have better than a 3-year contract because you may cut me after 1 year, and I'm back out here, looking for a job. But again, I want a place where I know I'm going to be the next 3 years. I can put some roots down. I can, feel like this is where I'm at. Now, he may not be able to command that, have that kind of leverage to command that, but I think he's going to try.
Yeah, but see, I think he actually he has some leverage right now because if you look at the quarterbacks and free agency, I mean that's a horrible list.
It's always a horrible list.
Well, this is a really bad list.
There's never been great quarterbacks.
No, but this is like a really. This is like when you get a bad gift and you want to give it back kind of list. This is just when we start
like
when we start the football season next year. Is Sam Bradford under center for the Eagles?
Yes, probably.
All right. Listen, my friend, always a pleasure. I'll make sure that
No problem. Be good.
I was going to say when I tweet stuff out, I always hashtag it sarcastic with you.
I got you. I appreciate that.
All right, Jason. Be good, pal.
Take care.
All right,
Thanks.
you too.
Bye.
Jason Cole,